healthcare and living in Roatan, Honduras. This video is specifically for my fellow Americans from the United States. Whoo, healthcare has been in the news a little bit. We've seen that, well, wrong, right, or otherwise. The people have been talking a lot about healthcare, and I wanted to just quickly tell you about my story with United and my story with healthcare in Roatan, Honduras, because I get a lot of questions about how's the healthcare in Honduras, and these are all valid things. As many of you know, I had two cancers, one of which was thyroid, so I don't have a thyroid, which means I have to do a daily maintenance and get take a pill every day, and then I also have to have my thyroid checked regularly, as well as doing scans now it's every 5 years to make sure that there is no return of the cancer. And I also had a tumor in my salivary gland, which is why I have 11 inches of scars, and sometimes why my face squeaks a little bit, because I have a paralyzed vocal nerve, and this side of my face doesn't always move at the same rate as this side of my face, which only really happens if I'm tired or if I have anything to drink. So where I should be, well, I had a lot of sleep and haven't had anything to drink, so it should be a good day today. So in the United States, I do have a U.S. passport, U.S. citizen, long-term resident of Honduras. So with health care, when I was under 35 years old, I went to the doctor, right, and I had children at 32 and 34, just for the background. I kept mentioning lots and lots of symptoms. However, these were symptoms of thyroid cancer or the development of thyroid cancer, which is a very slow growing cancer, typically speaking. So it doesn't, the one that I had is slow growing, which means I probably had it for a very long time. And I had been complaining about symptoms since I was about 30 years old, 30 to 35. There's a magic number right there. But because I was and I had United Healthcare, and because I was having children at that time, I kept being diagnosed with postpartum, and I remember them saying, if you really think it's your thyroid, and this is because I have a medical history of thyroid issues running in my maternal side, and I'm like, this might be it, because my aunt, my mom, and my grandmother all had it too. So anyway, but I remember being denied an ultrasound for my thyroid, which would, but I had it approved, and then it got denied, and then I had it approved, got it, and then I went to the ultrasound place, and they're like, oh, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to pay this out of cash. This is, well, you have to pay $600, and I was like, what? Which is kind of, it's not a small amount of money, and the reason why I was denied that after I was approved and denied, and back and forth, was because I was not 35. In order for them to, I did not have enough symptoms, even though I did have, you could feel nodules, but there's a high probability that it is just benign, which is lucky for most people, but anyway, so I had this $600 bill. They ended up seeing nodules, which was kind of a shock, but I ended up doing it. They found nodules, but they said nothing to worry about. And I said, do we need to biopsy these things? And they said, well, you'd have to pay out of pocket. And I think it was, $3,500. It was thousands of dollars. And I was like, And they're like, most likely it's because you're in childbearing years and you have just had a kid. And they kept saying it was postpartum, and wanted to put what they do to most women and just put you on antidepressants to get you to shut up. So luckily I live in Roatan, Honduras in this time also. And so I marched down to the doctor at the private hospital in Cox and Hull, and had a wonderful doctor. And I was like, hey, I think something's going on here. I said, I don't know what it is, but I can't get health care in the United States, or I can't afford it. My insurance keeps denying me. And this is the first time I had a doctor that I felt actually listened to me. It was in Roatan, Honduras, because you don't have to worry. You're not getting paid by the pharmaceuticals. You're not getting paid. Doctors are not incentivized for doing pills and all of the politicking that happens with U.S. healthcare. Not saying all U.S. healthcare. We're just talking about my personal situation, which might be a lot of people's. In Roatan, he listened to me. He goes, you think something's wrong? He goes, you know your body better than anybody else does. And he goes, let's see this. So we ended up doing an ultrasound. He saw the nodules, and he goes, he goes, I want to get a better ultrasound, which was $50. $50 to see him and the ultrasound. And so he said, you need to go to La Ceiba, which is just it's on the mainland. You can get there for about $35 on the ferry. So it was a day trip, which I also got to go to Walmart. So that was a fun shopping trip. So I get little joy out of little things. Anyway, I needed to get a higher resolution. So went there. I believe the higher resolution with the doctor was still under $100. Now the travel and stuff made it a little bit more expensive, but got the results back. Long story short, calcification. I need to continue to do more studies. So this time I'm sent to San Pedro, which luckily I can, well, the flights at the time were $70 to get to San Pedro Sula, which is just one of the bigger cities, that and Take Goose. They happen to know a cancer specialist that could see me right away in San Pedro, so that's who I ended up going to. I got a CT scan, biopsies, because then they found during the ultrasound they found another one right here, and I ended up getting a full another ultrasound, CT scan with contrast, 2 biopsies. They biopsied both lobes as well as this little guy right here for $800. I was able to get, unfortunately, I got an answer. It took $800 for this thing, but with under $1,500 all said and done, I got diagnosed, and something that I had been working on years and years and years to do in the United States, which I kept getting denied, and I couldn't get coverage, and I was like, I know something's wrong with my body. Anyway, it ended up being not 1, but 2 cancers, and I did end up going to the United States to MD Anderson and a thyroid institute in Florida, which was one of the good things about the insurance, which I did choose to go to hospitals that had performed this surgery. Both lobes had cancer in it, which indicated that it had been there for a long time, because it was there, but it had not gone to the lymph nodes, but so my lymph nodes were clean, and this ended up being another salivary gland right at the tail, which apparently was very exciting for the doctors at MD Anderson, which is why I ended up going to MD Anderson in Texas. But one of the good benefits of living in Roatan and the insurance that I had, I was not stuck, or I did not have a specific state. I had expat insurance, or that's just what it's called. It's just the word. I didn't name it. I was able to pick which state and coverage. Now we can skip to the end, but I'm alive, cancer-free, and I got to fight with the insurance company for 3 years to then pay for the surgery that they already performed. One of my bills was $279,000 that was denied, as well as my thyroid one after I had the pre-approvals. And for 6 months post-surgery, I had no voice because my thyroid, the tumor in my thyroid had grown around my vocal nerves, and my vocal nerve was severed. It was repaired, which they didn't know that until I was in surgery, which was not approved. Anyway, so luckily enough, I fought for 3 years. As you know, I'm an educated scientist biochemist also, so like the terms that are used and the amount of effort that I had to put in to get coverage, because it was about $400,000 worth of medical bills that all of a sudden fell on me. And they have all these great payment plans and all this No, if I didn't have the education that I needed, which I had 6 years of education to argue scientific facts with medical, but what if I hadn't had all of those things? So that's my other diatribe. And I spent a good amount of time, and the thing is, I survived. I was healthy enough to fight. I had to fight, and when I was in Roatan, Honduras, I didn't have to fight at all. I was listened to. I was treated with respect, dignity the entire time. I wasn't just told to take, because I was in childbearing years, women are mostly told to just take antidepressants and you'll be just fine. And in Roatan and in Honduras, I've had nothing but wonderful things. I did choose to have the surgeries outside of within the United States, so I'm very privileged to be able to have that option. Mostly, I had plastic surgeons, and that was one of the reasons, and because of the tumor, the growth around the nerves, that was ultimately the reason why, I ended up having to do more. This was 5.5 hours under general anesthesia, and this was about 3.5 hours. Apparently anesthesia is up for grabs nowadays, because this was supposed to be a 20-minute in and out, but because the tumor was wrapped around nerves, which they did not know beforehand, I was actually supposed to have both these guys out at the same time. But after the imaging, the doctor was like, actually, this is in your salivary gland. We can't take it out today. You're gonna have to go to a specialist. And this was supposed to be just a quick snap, take it out, but they did not know that the tumor was wrapped around the nerve. So my surgery ended up being over 3 hours. So, well, anyway, but I had 20 minutes approved. So maybe that was why the denial. At the end of the day, I ended up spending right around $30-some thousand in the United States, where the rest was covered. But I had to fight for 3 years. I ultimately did not hire attorneys, but I was advised by attorneys. And if I didn't have the 6 years of education to make scientific writing arguments, I would not have been able to fight the way I would have. I would have had to hire an attorney and spend more than $30,000 to get the 414 or 411, I don't remember the amount of money, when I could do everything down here. And so now I do all my maintenance down here. I do the blood tests. The prices have gone up a lot because, the prices have gone up a lot in the last 6 years. So it used to be between $30 and $80, and now it's between probably $50 and $200, depending on what tests I'm doing. Same with the scans. They have gotten a little bit more expensive, but you're still looking at under $1,000 for my preventatives and maintenance, and the every 5-year CT with contrast to make sure that I'm still cancer free. So thank you guys for tuning in. I know that's a long one, but we get a lot of healthcare questions. And yes, I did have the choice to do the surgeries in the US, but was more because mine were specialized. I did choose to have my children in the United States too. Now, hindsight, you know what? It probably would have been easier if my kids had a Honduran passport and a US passport, but those, at the time, I made a decision based on what I knew. You do what you know, not necessarily what's best. And there's lots of babies delivered here, and lots of healthy babies. And I know all my friends that do have that, kids with the dual passport, because they get the Honduran citizenship, plus usually whatever country they are coming from, they are able to get that one as well, EU, North America, and things of that nature, because it's almost impossible for the reverse to occur if you're not born in Honduras. So thank you guys for tuning in for 12 minutes. I know that's kind of a diatribe, but healthcare is a big issue. It's a big issue everywhere, and that's my story and why I can't say enough good things about all the doctors that I've seen in Honduras. And I'm very grateful to have the privileges that I do have and to be able to speak to you today.